What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video right here on Smack. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking it, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button that's just down here. And obviously, if you have an opinion, please share it with us in the comment section below. Enjoy the show.
Hi, hello together. I'm Josef Vollmayr, co-founder and managing director of Limehome, and you're listening to my Smack podcast.
Welcome to a new episode of the Smack Hospitality Podcast. My name is Florian Montag, and today I had the pleasure to welcome Dr. Josef Vollmayr, co-founder and managing director of Limehome. We discussed the story behind Limehome and its strategic orientation, why a fully digital guest experience becomes the new standard in the mid-scale market, and how the alternative accommodation segment becomes more and more mainstream. Enjoy the show. Hello, Josef. It's great to have you on the show.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Josef, let's start with an easy one. When you got into hospitality and founded Limehome 4 years ago, did you have any idea what you got yourself into?
It's a good question. I think, like me personally, not originally coming from the space, I think I was prepared to have kind of a roller coaster. But to be honest, I did not expect to have such a fast roller coaster as we had over the last, let's say, 4 years, starting first Limehome and then working in a pandemic environment for almost 2 years. But it was, during all the time, great fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. We'll talk a bit in a second about how actually Limehome was maybe the exact perfect solution to a problem we didn't know yet at that time, which was the pandemic. But first, I would love to learn a bit more about yourself. I mean, you're ex-McKinsey, so not the typical hospitality background. What was the driver for yourself to say, let's get into hospitality, let's look at a new concept and disrupt the way hotels or service departments work today?
It's to be honest, it's a very tough question. I think my whole life was full of coincidences. I never really planned to end up in consulting. I never planned to do a PhD. I also never planned to start a business, but it just all came together. I, at any point in time, decided to do something myself. Had previously done a couple of real estate investments, and then obviously I had the joy of staying in around probably 100 hotels over the last 5 years. And then I just met the right people. We had some good discussions, and we just decided to start something in the space. And I think sometimes it's beneficial to come from the same industry. Sometimes it's exactly the opposite, to have a fresh and, let's say, outside view on the industry. And this is in the end just how it started. So pure coincidence, I would say.
So you actually say that the regular hotel experience is not always the perfect experience for a business traveler?
I think, not always for sure. I think the whole industry, or all the guests, they have learned something. They got used to, but it's definitely not the most efficient way of handling hospitality. And also, if you compare it to other industries, there has been disruption in literally any industry out there, but I think especially hospitality was lacking behind. And given the huge amount of very repetitive processes, there's a very clear use case to actually bring digitization into the space. And I think this helped us a lot because we were actually able to start from scratch, to see what can be digitized, where we need technology, where can we do things differently. And then we just started. And we didn't know what we're doing wrong. And it was, I think, actually helpful to a certain degree.
Yeah. So the profiles of your co-founders, for the ones who do not know your co-founding team, what were they? Were they all also more consultants, or also hospitality people, tech?
Yeah. So my co-founder actually has quite a similar profile. He was also with McKinsey. And then we just added quite early on people with the required expertise on the tech side. I mean, both of us, we were managing larger digital transformations. So we had a bit of a perspective, I would say, how to manage these three transformations. But then we just brought in quite quickly people with the required expertise.
Yeah. And so, for the ones who do not know Limehome today, what's the concept behind Limehome, and how has it maybe changed over the last 4 years?
I think the basic idea has always been the same. So like our purpose and also like what we plan to achieve is basically being able to manage any like overnight stay without any manual interaction at a very high customer satisfaction. So that means we try to basically digitize everything along the guest journey, but especially everything what's happening in the back end. And this is actually our key USP, because already as of today, like the majority of all bookings, they don't need any manual interaction. So we don't have to push a button. Most people don't even realize there's a booking unless they have a look into the system.
So when you say majority, because I know the numbers are very, very high for hoteliers, maybe they all think like, oh, it's 30% or it's 50%, but for you guys, it's way, way higher, right?
No, exactly. It's around 2/3 of all bookings at the moment. So that means like 1/3 of the guests, they still have questions up front, like for instance, where is parking? Where can I get breakfast? Sometimes there are even like smaller flaws in the system. So maybe an access system doesn't work and they have to call us. So like 2/3, and it's also one of our major or key OKRs for the entire business. So we basically try to improve this number month by month, and the target is to be quite soon at around 90-95%. It will never be possible to be at 100%. I think this is also something we need to be clear, because it's still a people business and people are so different. People will have specific needs, specific requests, but that's in the end where we stand as of today.
Yeah. So these are also requests which then, you'll kind of automate responses based on just chatbots, etc., and learnings. Because of course, where's the parking is not a unique question necessarily.
No, indeed. I think that's the beauty of our approach, I would say, because we have set it up in a way that every interaction we have with the guests, and interaction can literally be anything. It can be a review on the channels, it can be a call, it can be a WhatsApp, it can be whatever it is, even a personal interaction with our people on site if they visit the properties. So we classify each of the interactions, and we know what they are about, and in the end you just have to count the quantities, or basically the importance, the impact of every interaction, and then you have a pretty clear basically idea on how to prioritize your development roadmap. So you know where you need to automate, and it makes you very efficient in spending your resources.
Yeah. And so you came up with that concept, or with that idea already before the pandemic, because like of course now everybody would say, yeah, that makes sense, clear, the pandemic might have changed customer behavior. But what was kind of the feedback from initial guests who stayed in the first Limehomes before the pandemic, and how has this customer expectation maybe also changed throughout the years?
It's also a good one. I mean, first of all, I think we as a company, we have developed a lot over the last 4 years, and still the physical part of the experience, like the room, how it looks like, the design, the property itself, the location, still plays a major role. I would say for the perception of the guest, or for the guest satisfaction, the digital part is not even super relevant unless it works. It's rather for us super relevant to be able to do things maybe other hotels are not able to do. It just needs to work. They don't complain, but they don't also tell you it's amazing. I mean, some of them like it a lot that you don't have to queue, that you can check in online and so forth, but it's not the major driver. And then when it comes to the guest feedback, in the early days, actually we tested very small. We started with very small properties to see how it works, in which locations, what they like, and we quite early on just decided to go from a physical point of view, a product point of view, into rather the alternative accommodation space, like offering service apartments, offering for short stays with a kitchen, because we just saw that there's already quite a trend going into this direction. thanks to Airbnb, for instance, I think who prepared the industry for that. And it was very easy to observe that there is a huge demand for these offerings. And if you are able to combine it with a high quality standard and consistent service level, it was very obvious from the beginning that guests like it. So we basically constantly had like NPS scores of 50 or more, which is way higher than the industry. It's in the end just a matter of price, right? If you have low prices, it's quite easy to get high NPS scores or a high guest satisfaction. If you increase prices, you need to improve your offering, your services, and so forth. So we basically always went with the flow, and we were able also to increase prices over time.
Yeah, we can hear it in how you speak. For example, like NPS score, so Net Promoter Score, OKR, Objective Key Results, which is a kind of tech-driven, KPIs and ways of working. Which brings me to my other question: do you see yourself more like a hospitality business, or are you a tech business, or a hybrid? How would you describe yourself?
There are a lot of discussions going on in the market. I think, like in the end, if I like classify companies, a pure tech company, someone who either does solely research and really comes up with something super innovative, which has never been there before, or they actually sell software, right? We're neither of this. In the end, we are not offering an entirely new product for the customer, for the guests. They have seen it before. We might do it better on certain dimensions. We do it differently. But for most guests, it's not surprising. If it would be surprising, they wouldn't like it. The market is so traditional. And on the other hand, we're not selling software as a key product. We're still selling overnight stays. So I think when I would describe ourselves, we're probably a tech-enabled hospitality business who's able to do things differently.
Yeah.
And sorry, just to add maybe one more point, like calling yourself a tech company is just something you use to get maybe higher valuations when you talk to venture capital firms. But looking at some peers in the market, it might not always be helpful either if you then once go public.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, everybody's a tech company nowadays, right? Even a lot of traditional hotel groups are trying to bring in tech products or differentiate via technology, which maybe before jumping in that topic of whole digitization itself, you mentioned venture capital and you guys are VC backed, right?
Yep.
So how do VCs look at tech-enabled hospitality products? Do they get it? Is it easy, or is there a lot of explanation why this is a scalable solution? And yeah, how are the discussions? And has it also changed now in the last 5 years? Because 5 years ago it was quite unique, and as you say, nowadays, especially from the US, you have quite a few ones, but also in Germany you have you guys and a few others.
Yeah. Also, the VC scene is very dynamic, I think, as you introduced. And it has changed a lot over the last 4 years, basically when we started. I think in the beginning, I would say it was very easy for us to show the relevance to a venture capital investor, because it's a huge market. There's a very clear potential to disrupt the industry. And there's a very clear path to profitability. I think unless many other companies, like hotel companies, can be super profitable, especially if you're able to take out some costs, if you maybe have different properties and so forth. So it was very, very easy to make this clear. So for early stage investors, it's a great case. However, the business itself, if you want to scale it, it's, especially in the beginning, it's capital intense, right? So you need a certain amount of money to furnish rooms. You have rent deposits if you basically go into fixed leases and so forth. You have a lot of upfront invests for a tech team, but you, on the other hand, you are not generating like SaaS revenues, which they easily understand. So basically, if you then reach a certain stage of, let's say, 10 million to 50 million euros revenues, the case is entirely different, because like a new investor, they will not get 10x on their investment anymore, but they have a very high certainty to get 5-6x. So it's a great case, but it doesn't fit the structure of a typical venture capital investor. So you need to find entirely new ways or new partners to work together with. Can be either on the debt side, because the business is super predictable if there is no pandemic. It's also, like, as I said, highly profitable. And then you need to talk to like rather private equity investors. So it depends a lot on your company stage. And it's something you need to learn, like what's the best partner to talk to in which stage. And
so you actually move into the more traditional kind of hospitality investment companies, so PEs, etc. So you suddenly compare to other hotel brands, where at the beginning you're maybe in your market from your own, with a own kind of investor pool, but then at some point you need to compare your numbers with more traditional hotel groups.
kind of, yes. I mean, VCs, they invest on visions and the founders team. Like private equity investors, they invest basically on a forward multiple in, let's say, 18 months on EBITDA, for instance. So if you have a clear path to profitability, or if you're profitable already with a high growth rate, it gets very attractive to these players.
Yeah, moving more to the tech topic. So you guys have quite a significant development team in house. Your technology is core USP, I would say, to Limehome. As you said, not necessarily always too much for the guest itself, to the wow, but actually to make this whole engine work. How did you start with that and build on that? How did you also know what to build from day one?
Yeah, no, I think, like, first of all, you can always heal everything with people, right? Because in the end, you have a physical product. If nothing works, you just send people there, or if you want to make it work. And I think what was for us, which was is super helpful, is that I mean, you know them best, that there was like a partner like Apaleo, which basically already brought a solution, or had a solution up there, with a very similar way of thinking, which we could leverage and use to basically just get started. So we already had a certain tech stack, just in combining, or infrastructure in combining different solution providers out there for different layers and levels, like using Twilio to send out SMS, using an external booking engine, like using Apaleo and so forth. So we could, like, with lots of people managing the interfaces, managing our first like solutions, we could get started. And then what was key for us, tried to mention it before already quickly, was to get an understanding on how to work on. Like, what are the reasons? Why do we get tickets? What are the reasons? How could we reduce people? What are, like, potential levers to basically expand our sourcing profile, to go to additional cities, to maybe larger properties, smaller ones, different ones, and so forth, new countries. And then the roadmap, as I said, is pretty clear, because you have an amount of tickets to work on, and then you just take it from there. And over time, we more and more replaced basically external providers. I think now we're still using, for instance, Apaleo for certain backend tasks, but I would say 90% of what we're using at the moment is fully internal. For some things, it doesn't just make sense to develop it in-house, like, for instance, customer service tools. It's not basically our key USP. So there we're still relying on, like, tools for voice recording, for classifying tickets and so forth. But in general, we're using most of the stuff, or we're developing most of the stuff in-house.
Yeah. No, for sure. There's some infrastructure elements and some tools. There's always the conversation of buy or build, but as you say, it's important to have this big layer for you guys to bring it more together. Something to also better understand, maybe for the listeners. So who's your target market today? So and maybe how many properties do you have at this stage?
Um, I don't know exactly, to be honest, because we are opening, I think, around three to four properties every month at the moment. We should have around 100 live at the moment in soon 6 countries. And our target market is, I would say, the typical Motel 1 guest who wants to stay maybe 1 night longer or 2 night longer, who might travel with a partner, with a family. So we are purely in the mid-scale segment for basically city travel. And then the rest basically comes with the supply. If you go to a small city, you with a business point of interest, you have, of course, more business travel. If you go to more leisure destinations, you have more leisure travelers. But in the end, we're more or less the average of the guests which goes to the specific location we have a property in. So 39 years, 2.8 nights, average length of stay, just a few more families than a typical hotel.
Yeah, but there's also a key element which you kind of disrupted for traditional hotels, right? I don't see any Accors, etc., having very small properties with 25 units or something like that in maybe, or Accor goes also in tier B, C, D cities, but at a much different scale, because they say it doesn't bring enough revenues, or it's not profitable to have smaller locations. How have you changed the status quo there, or you and the Numas and etc. who go similar concepts?
Yeah, I think actually Numa has a slightly different strategy in that regard. But like talking about us, for us, it was always key to, once we open a new property, it needs to work without any own personal staff on site. So we have basically built a support infrastructure which is able to cover the whole region. Region means, in that case, for us, it's the DACH region. So it's a pure plug and play approach. We have already the partners to work together on site. There are cleaning companies, housekeeping companies who can cover a region, and they grow with us. So if you go to a new city, they just build up the infrastructure there. We also have maintenance, upkeep people which can support us on site, but everything we basically do works basically on a demand level. So we just pay per clean, we just work or use external people, external maintenance managers if there's a ticket, if they need to do something, and then we just build our solution to improve the service level for us and to make it as efficient for our external partners as possible. So that means there's a housekeeping app which has implemented lots of like quality checks. There is an app for maintenance. So if a light bulb bug is, for instance, not working anymore, we know it through the tickets. It's connected to our maintenance app. It's distributed to the people on site who just go there and replace it. So long story short, when we open up a new city, it's just informing the cleaning partner, informing or maybe searching a person on site who's there on demand, and that's it. We use our internal setup team, which is super fast, like let's say 25 units, typically in 2 to 3 days to set it up. And then we can basically connect it to the system, and we will be most likely be booked out after, let's say, 3 to 7 days. So it's a pure plug and play approach, and therefore we can go everywhere. So we're even like considering properties which might have 10 apartments only. There aren't that many, let's say, commercial assets which are that small. But if you're in a mixed use building, you can easily take a floor and so forth. So in the end, you can just scale up the model as you want, and you work basically in the background on the system to further improve it.
Mm-hmm. Which chances does that bring for looking at conversions, as you say, a lot of kind of small offices, people going out of the normal office and maybe working more from home. So there's a lot of office space or other commercial real estate in city centers throughout Germany, but also in other countries, as of course. are there any chances that through models like you're able to create something out of this or creating new value?
I think a lot. I think first of all, it's way easier to fill 25 rooms than 250 rooms. Why? Because there is a seasonality in the business. There's a seasonality throughout the week. There's a seasonality throughout the month. There's a seasonality throughout the year. And if you think about a Sunday, and maybe, I don't know, let's pick a city like Mainz. You will not have huge demand on a Sunday. If you have 200 rooms to fill, you will struggle. If you have 20 rooms and the best value for money offering, they will be full, right? So you're able to get way better economics if you have a similar cost structure. And this is one, I think, key source of success. Of course, despite, I think, a quite advanced revenue management system we already have implemented and improved over time. The second one is just on the branding side, because also thinking about the market, and this is one of the most intense discussions with potential investors always. You can't force a traveler to go to a certain location. You need to be where the guest needs to travel. Unless you're a resort or just purely focused on leisure. So if you're a business traveler selling, I don't know, Red Bull, you go to every small city in Germany. And in these cities, there's a lot of demand. Like even in a city like Augsburg, you have easily like 1 million overnight stays. You need 2,000 rooms to cover the demand, at least, or 3,000. But there is no large hospitality brand. So if you go to these cities and you're able to operate smaller properties, it gives you a huge opportunity. And you're typically, especially in these cities, you're very often among the best offerings in this location. So you have less competition. You have way more relaxed real estate markets, especially when it comes to office, for instance, or other commercial assets. So this can give you very good unit economics if you're able to make it work. And last but not least, there are probably many more reasons. Like it speeds up your expansion, because assets in the size of 100, 200 units, apartments in a good location, there's quite little supply.
Yeah, it's quite demanding, yeah? And it also takes time, right?
It takes a lot of time. It takes like 3-4 years to develop it. There are not many developments in like really great locations in city centers. And they are very expensive because everyone jumps on them. Like for 10% of the deals, we're competing with literally everyone. It goes through brokers. The cases are very tiny. If you have the chance to go to other asset types, which are smaller, if you convert them, it's not that expensive to convert an office space, because even a new office tenant, they need to basically they need to convert the space anyways, because every tenant has a different requirement. So if you're able to cover these spaces, you can at least 10 times choose or have a 10 times larger variety of properties you can choose from.
Yeah. You guys are differentiating, right? Through the cities where you're going, through the technology you found. And as we can see now in 4 years of building a startup, you clearly have a space for your product. You have a product market fit. You have customers or guests who are happy to come to Limehome. But of course, this is one of the key challenges a startup has when building it from the ground up. But it's also all about building an amazing team, right? I mean, I know that you guys are more streamlined, so maybe much less people than properties, but or when you would traditionally have in hospitality. But how is it for you to build the team today? And you guys are 200 at the moment, something around that, or?
No, we're around 150 at the moment, but still obviously growing, especially when it comes to new countries.
So it's nearly one person per property.
Yes, but I think, like, to be honest, this ratio will change a lot. So it already has changed by 3, right? So when we had 10 properties, we were 50 people and so forth. And we plan to bring this ratio like way further down, because the team we're having internally, most of them are not working actually on daily operations. At least most expensive team is the tech team. They develop the product. We have the second largest team is the expansion team, so by finding new properties. Actually, the share of people we have to operate the properties is quite small. Might be 30%.
Yeah. So how big is your tech team to date?
It's around 40 people, like in-house developers, data scientists, and also the fastest growing team.
Not bad, not bad. I think quite a few of the largest hotel chains in the world don't have such a big tech team, because I think it's also important to say that often you have like a systems or an integration team which just makes sure that kind of the things come together, but actually you guys are building value, right? It's not just making sure that the one system connects to the other, but it's really building on top. But looking at your team, so what were kind of the thresholds, the difficulties which you had to come, that is it like 1 to 20 employees and 20 to 50? What was kind of always these milestones you achieved where you said, okay, now we realized we achieved the next level?
I think it's something where founders or like key people of a company learn the most over time. It's crazy, and it was so new to me. Like even being in a responsible role at a management consultancy, so easy to lead people, right? Just maybe to start off with, I think in the beginning also there it's quite easy because it's super exciting to work on a new idea. And if you have, let's say, 10 people in the room, everyone is informed, everyone knows about everything. It's very efficient in the beginning to have such a setup, but it doesn't work for too long. Like once you're 15, 20 people, it doesn't work anymore. You need to introduce structures. And this is more or less, I would say, the first potential breakpoint, because you need to bring in expertise. I think when we started, like, although I'm a bit older, obviously, our average age was probably 26, 27. We're now way above 30. So basically the work experience of our people, like if you consider that they start maybe at 25, it's 4 times higher. So you bring in new expertise, and it's sometimes tough for the people who are there to accept it. They don't have all the information at hands all the time. So it's like the first time. And I think then the second breakpoint would theoretically be at around 100 people, because then you introduce a different layer. You typically go international. So we have a team in Spain with an MD in Spain, for instance. We're setting up a similar structure in Italy. So you have the cross-country collaboration. You have maybe a headquarter which works on tools, systems, and you have different stakeholders you have to manage. So you more or less jump into a matrix organization. So I would say these 3 breakpoints, from 10 to more, from 100, and the internationalization topic. And it's, to be honest, I understand every investor out there who invests in serial entrepreneurs or founders, because it's such an amazing learning. And whatever someone tells you outside, you have to experience it yourself. It's hard to take advices when it comes to building up an organization or lead people.
Yeah, it always comes different than expected. And how is it was like, because of course, as you say, the first 10 people, they're super excited about we're changing the industry, maybe some from the industry, some not, but at least, really driving and with the goal of this big disruption. How is it to attract talent today with, hospitality not always being the key magnet for people to say, hey, I want to go and work in hospitality, especially throughout the pandemic? Did you have difficulties with the brand hospitality, or and you had to reposition Limehome saying like we are different? Or is it an industry a lot of people still want to come and work in?
I think it's not the most sexy industry when it comes to high potentials, I would say, and tech talent. But in the end, if you position yourself right, and also looking at our people, we don't have too many people with a hospitality background. And this is also, these are not the people we need the most. It's an entirely different set of people. Like, we don't have, at the moment, we don't have a single revenue manager, basically, which is a revenue management background. We have data scientists who build algorithms. So if you like make them clear what they are working on, it's not a disadvantage on the hiring market. But you can't just attract people by telling everyone we're a SaaS company with crazy multiples out there. So it's a little bit more complex, I would say. And then you obviously need to work a lot on your employer brand. Culture becomes super important. Culture, values, also giving our people a great time. The office, I always underestimated the office. Like, an office shapes the culture of a company like crazy. It's like, these are the levers to pull then.
So you guys are a lot remote or a lot in the office now, or?
Yeah, so I would say we're flexible, but I really believe in an office space where people meet. So we have basically different models. Fully remote, which only works if the basically manager is willing to accept it, and this works, of course, a lot in tech positions and so forth. We have a hybrid approach where people like maybe come 1 or 2 days on average to the office, and we have like the pure office approach, which actually most of the people are using, and therefore we also have an office in Madrid, we have the office in Munich, and so forth. So I would say it's 40-50% of the people are always in the office, which is very, very important for such a business, because I can't imagine of a more complex business model, to be honest, because you have to match branding, marketing, physical product, a digital product, operations, real estate, and everything comes together. The guest feedback depends on everything. So you really need to make sure that there is a lot of interaction, and it would never work with a remote only culture.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now looking a bit into the future, right? The last 4 years were definitely not what anybody in hospitality expected. So it's going to be maybe difficult to look into the future, but and we have, it's not all bright as well, right? Ukraine crisis, energy prices which go really up, but there's one market, at least at the moment, in hospitality, which is booming, and people are really saying this is really the future, is serviced apartments, and you guys are in there. How do you see the serviced apartment industry growing in the next 4 or 5 years, and performing? What do you predict?
Yeah. I think it's a lot about just putting a label on a product, to be honest, because for us, 90% of the guests could also just book a hotel room. They go there, they might like the flexibility, they use the kitchen, they maybe order food and eat it there, and they're happy that they have cutlery in the room and maybe a table, but they could also go to a hotel. So in the end, I think serviced apartment is just give it a label. So I think the entire space, alternative accommodation, is just growing because every market trend goes into this direction. There's more mobility of people, families travel, there's remote work, there's leisure travel, whatever. City travel is coming back. The pure business travel has maybe declined a bit, so you don't need just a small, tiny room for one night and so forth. But I also believe that the main reason, or the two main reasons why it goes into this direction, is first, the large hotel complexes, they have been benefiting from the service level they were able to provide. But guests are super informed nowadays. They know what to do in a city. So they don't have to go to the hotel restaurant. They don't have to take the breakfast in the restaurant anymore. You can just Google. You find it everywhere. You have even gym solutions which span across cities. So the benefits of the large hotel complexes, they're diminishing. So other options become more important, and it's a lot about flexibility, right? If you want to work, if you want to like stay a bit longer, if you have a meeting, you stay in the hotel room and you conveniently can work from there. So it's just going to this direction. And of course, the pandemic has accelerated this trend. That's for sure. And like, you have lots of surveys out there. I think Skift did one, and 52% of travelers actually now prefer such an alternative accommodation over the typical hotel room for these benefits. And the second main driver, talking a lot by the way, is that now with technical solutions, alternative accommodation providers like us are able to operate these accommodations at similar costs like a hotel. Like previously, cleaning was super expensive. Like the space efficiency was not as good as a hotel. But now with tech-enabled solutions, smarter concepts, how to fit the stuff into rooms and so forth, like the cost structure is entirely changed. So they're very competitive also on prices. And like in the end, it just gives the guests a better value for money.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think, and also with this whole sharing economy, nowadays, urban sports or whatever, everybody can have a subscription to be able to join a fitness around, or you can also, as a hotel, have via platforms connect with local fitness places, spas, co-workings, and suddenly you have amenities in the city, which before you needed in your property yourself.
Exactly. And I don't know, at least myself, I've never seen an amazing gym in a hotel. It's different about wellness, but it's not what hotels are particularly good at.
Yeah, and it's also expensive, right? Nowadays to have this amount of real estate there, and not everybody or all companies would pay for a 5-star hotel for the employees, but maybe the employee would book an additional 20 euros to go to the local fitness next door because it's for their own personal health. Important. Looking also, I mean, for me, the question is, did you guys have, when starting Limehome, I know you started a bit from outside of the industry, but did you have some kind of lighthouse hotel groups or hospitality concepts, maybe from the US or something, where you say, hey, we would like to be like that? Or also looking at, especially now last year or this beginning of the year with the SPAC in from Sonder, etc. How do you see the market developing in the US there, and how do you guys think you differentiate and maybe have a even more successful kind of path?
Yeah, I think when we started, I think the idea was rather building professional Airbnb supply with a very consistent service and build up the brand around that, because there is a lot you can basically build on, right? We didn't know Sonder when we started, interestingly, but of course, if you start first conversations, if you do your market analysis and so forth, you directly like tap into Sonder, and I think they did a good job. Yeah, I mean, they have built a great brand. They have some great products. Of course, it's currently not an amazing stock market story, right? But still, they have been grown to or they have IPO'd after 7 years.
That's a success story.
It's a success story indeed, yeah. And I mean, it's also not a surprise that the stock price went down 80%. There are many other growth companies which were facing the same. And of course, like selling a tech story, working with very, very tiny margins, a huge debt and burn, it's entirely clear that this will happen. And I think they have turned the model a little bit after trying to blitzscale a model, which I believe you can't blitzscale, because very pragmatic decision making is key there. You can't just sign a lease for revenues and then to optimizing it. They are on a good track. I still have some doubts about the long-term profitability there, but I'm sure the team there makes it work. I think it was also, of course, in the end, a good example for us, right? We from the beginning on focused on margin, on very pragmatic decision making. There are very clear thresholds when it comes to expansion. And it makes a huge difference because the real estate is still, it's our basically the cogs if you compare it to a regular business model. So basically the key ingredients we need to make our product work is in the end the real estate. And if you're able to source way cheaper deals, if you don't go entirely crazy, it changes entirely the business. And like while Sonda, I think they were at around 6% property level profit in Q2. We are constantly above 30. It's of course an entirely different game. So I mean, we will become profitable with even 6 times less units, obviously. Have to cover way less overhead. And actually now, even at that size, we reached positive EBITDA levels in our first month already. So I think there's a very, very clear path forward to profitability. And we now just have to scale and execute the business.
Yeah. Very interesting. Last questions before I let you go is more maybe a visionary question or for yourself is, where do you see Limehome? What's your vision today with Limehome? Where do you want to bring it to be able to say, hey, what's your dream today with Limehome?
I think I would actually move away from a marketing slogan now, and just a purely personal answer. I think if our employees have a great time here, if they learn a lot, if they enjoy the ride for 3 to 5 years, they most likely will not stay way longer because they're super ambitious, talented, and so forth, and they want to advance. That's point 1. Point 2, our investor will have a good case, which is, I think, easily executable. And then last but not least, that we are able to serve many, many happy guests. That's what should make us all happy. That's my vision. And I think now already hosting, now I need to do the math myself, probably 20,000 guests a month already. And the large majority is super happy, is something which makes us and me also happy on the vision, on the way to our vision.
That's a great way to end the podcast. Josef, thank you so much for giving so many insights behind the scenes of the alternative accommodation market, Limehome, your own story. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Florian.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you want more from Smack, you can find it right here. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, which is entirely free, by the way. So I have no idea why you haven't done that yet. Our social media channels are in the section below if you want to stay in touch. We'll see you next time.